Sounds good. So my name is Jonelle, and I work at AirUp, which is a building design and engineering firm, in our foresight team, which is we essentially look at the future of the built environment. So what trends, disruptors, and things are happening today, and try to work with people to understand how that'll be shaping the way we design and build in the future. And so specifically the topic that I've been focused on the last few years is around regenerative design. And we've been using this idea of planetary boundaries as a framework to help get us there. So I'm going to probably hop around a couple of screens for a sec, but I would say, I'm going to start by saying this is still in sort of like the research and development phase. So there isn't like a product at the end. It's more of a way that we're thinking about approaching this. So let's see, planetary boundaries, a short overview is just that there are 9 different Earth systems that were created by Earth scientists as a way to understand how the planet works and functions together as a systems. And so they've made these 9, they're on the screen, but they're topics like land system change, freshwater use, aerosols, etc. And essentially when you put all of them together, you have all of this, I'm simplifying, but like essentially you have all of the systems that that are required to keep the Earth in function, I guess. And then within each one of those, so on the map, there's the green part and then the yellow and the red part. So essentially what we want to do for the future of the planet is stay in the green circle. So the scientists have come up with science-based targets for each one. So each one of these 9 has a number, and essentially if we stay within that number, the assumption is then, you know, the planet will continue to survive, will continue to have a habitat that survives and thrives for people. If it goes beyond that, we don't know what will happen. Maybe it will be okay, maybe it won't. You know, they aren't sure yet. But essentially the reason I'm presenting this is the framework we've been looking at to try to think about, can we use this earth science approach as a way, I'm not going to show you the video. Can we use the earth science approach and apply that to, you know, cities, buildings, infrastructure, etc., as a way to guide how we design and build? So I think, so I guess our question so I've been doing this for around 3 years, and I think our question from the beginning has really been, can we use the built environment and the, you know, physical systems to help deliver more positive planetary outcomes? So can this be a tool to change the way that the level of the planet, I suppose? So things like, you know, if you know much about this, it's Earth Overshoot Day is a good way to think about it. Like that always happens earlier every year. And that's the day that essentially we all use, the globe has used up all the resources for the year. And so on average, we use 1.6 Earths a year, and we only live on one planet. So fundamentally that is not stable and not sustainable. And yeah, these are all like kind of the questions and things that we've been pulling. And, you know, one of the big contributions from people are the physical environments. And it's the fact that they're all a system. So it's not just, you know, we built a city, like we know, you know, cities have big carbon footprints, but what are all of the other systems that go into that? So resource extraction and transportation and all of these things. I don't think, actually, I'm going to change this because I don't think this is going to tell what I want to talk about. And so that's essentially what the concept that we've been working on so far is looking at can we use this to design and build differently? And so in the meantime, I've been doing lots of like talking to people and interviews and research and trying to get our heads around how, because nobody knows how, and it's not an easy topic. And in order to do that, you really have to start approaching, you know, the idea from a different angle, I guess. And so what's on the screen now is slightly different. So the planetary boundaries are the framework, but the end goal is really around regenerative design. So the question is, can we design a regenerative future? And also, what does that look like? So I think we take as given that, yes, we can, we just don't know yet. And so then so I've been working on now has been starting to create visions. So can we create a vision of what a sustainable future looks like? Or, sorry, regenerative. Because so as a foresight, working in foresight, you learn quick. One of the things that we do is help people make visions of the future, because people will work towards the things they think are possible and plausible, and not towards what they don't. And often that's at a subconscious level. So, for example, if you don't think it's possible, I don't know, if you think to fly, then you're never going to fly, right? And if you think it's possible, then maybe you'll fly. But at least like that gives people a vision of hope and a vision of something to work towards. And so that's sort of what we're working on now. What's a good way to dig into this? So what I'm showing you now is a bit of the research, and it's kind of in a funny format, but we've been trying to find new ways to share our research in parallel, because as we're doing this, we're trying to figure out how to make it collaborative and get more people involved. So we've made this sort of research hub, database, whatever you want to call it, with our working progress. So what we've started to do in order to get to creating these visions is, step one has been really, can we define what regenerative design means? What does a regenerative built environment look like? So we've been working on a definition for that. So far, we've come up with like 7 design principles. So topics like looking into education and awareness and making sure, people just understand it in the first place. Co-creating place, because everything, no one does anything in a silo. We have to do it all together. How do we leverage tech? So a lot of often the environment and tech are at odds with each other. And so it's about how do we, bring those together and use tech to help. Designing living systems, which to some degree is kind of the end point. So can we create a regenerative system in the first place? And then later will be how, but yeah. Enhancing natural systems. So that's around, biodiversity and ecological gain. So how do we improve, and how do we improve that quality? So there's some built environment solutions that already exist, but at smaller scales. So for instance, transportation networks often create biodiversity loss. And the reason is if you have a big area, whether it's a mountain or a stream or a river or a, meadow, forest, anything, we put in linear infrastructure, which cuts the habitat in half. And from that day forward, any animals that live there now have 2 homes instead of 1 home, right? Because you've just divided it, which just separates them, puts them in 2 different buckets. And same with trees, because we know like trees all talk to one another. So if you put something in the middle of them, that breaks up their network. And I think a lot of this is we don't necessarily know all of the unintended consequences, but we know that seems to impact the biodiversity quality of an area. Anyhow, last 2 around stuff like valuing social well-being. So making sure that we continue to think about people, and then adopting progressive governance, because we'll need policies and new design paradigms in order to kind of get towards this regenerative future. In the meantime, the board has some of our research and stuff, so there's articles and some analysis and whatnot. And then what we're starting to do now, and it's not done yet, but is starting to frame our visions. So what we want to do at the end, and sorry you're getting a little bit of process, but this is a little boring spreadsheet, but what we want to achieve at the end is to be able to create a vision of what, as I mentioned, a vision of what is a regenerative future, and can we create a vision for that? So what we're aiming for is first articulating what is the difference between sustainable, restorative, and regenerative. I think there are still questions about, are those 3 things or are they one thing? But for today's purposes, we're considering them 3. Then we want to understand, what do they mean at scales? So, what does it mean for a building or a city or a whole transportation network? But I think the key at the end is going to really be around can we come up with strategies and actions, you know, to be able to provide people so that they can meaningfully take action and help progress the agenda or progress us towards the future that they want to see. So yeah, and I guess we're partway down that journey. We're probably 50-60% where we're starting to get like what the picture of the future will look like, but the next few steps are going to be really around like stakeholder engagement, getting people in the room, and once we have these visions, just better understanding what the steps are to get there. And that really requires like everybody to be involved. So we need ecologists, and we need building engineers, and we need just people like citizens of cities. You know, what is there something that, you know, you can do? You don't necessarily have to be a designer. Can you, you know, what do all of us as inhabitants have to do? Because cities aren't just about the design. They're also about all the people that are in them, because we make cities at the end of the day. So I guess with that, I'll call it.